Welcome back to Small Caps. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and today I am bringing you a new company some of you may not have heard of. Company is Zenith Minerals. The ASX code is ZNC, and here joining me today is Peter Bird. He is the newly appointed Executive Chairman. Welcome to Small Caps, Peter. Great to see you.
Thank you, Kerry. Great to be here. Great to be with Small Caps.
Well, there's been a lot of things going on in the Zenith story. Now, many of our listeners may not have heard of Zenith before, so I want to start off, if we can, just paint the big picture. We'll get into the details a little bit further down the track, but just a brief overview of who are Zenith Minerals?
Yeah, okay. Zenith Minerals, as you said, ASX listed, ZNC, with a focus in the precious and base metals space, with a really good core portfolio of assets, mostly within Australia.
Peter, you've recently come on board as of a couple of days ago as the Executive Chairman. What prompted that? Because I know that you, for one, are very focused on getting the right people in the right places to advance projects in the right way. So talk to me a little bit about, you were the non-exec chairman, you're now exec chairman. Why has that come about? And let's talk about some of the other management within Zenith.
Yeah, sure. So the background to why I got involved in the first place is I was really drawn to two things. One is the Zenith team, headed by CEO Mick Clifford, have this innate ability to find good quality projects. So, and they've done this for years. If you sort of go back over the history of this team of people, they've done that. So I was drawn to that. And I joined the board in the first quarter of this calendar year as a non-executive director. So I've sort of been observing, if you like, for some time. I think also in that period, a couple of things have happened. I mean, the level of interest in the resources sector clearly has elevated. And because we're in the precious and base metals space, that's a sexy place to be at the minute. And we can get onto that in a bit more detail. And what we were looking to do was sort of grow the value of these assets. Probably the major catalyst event is that not so long ago we did a capital raising, bought a bit over $5 million into the till, which then really allowed us to unlock our activity. We could start doing things. So all of a sudden we're drilling, and we'll get onto our projects in a minute, but we're drilling and evaluating sort of 4 key projects this quarter in the portfolio. So the implications of and sorry, I should say, with quite a deal of success already, but the implication of that is it starts to generate a lot of data and generate a lot of work. So we've made quite a structured decision in the management team to say, look, we need to add a bit of horsepower into the executive team. So as the announcement said today, with my appointment as executive chairman, Mick Clifford will keep focusing on those assets, keep building them up, and he won't be hidden from the market. We'll still be, very involved together. But I'll pick up a bit more of the corporate and investor relations role, because that in itself is a big job to tell the story about what the company's up to.
Yeah, and you've had lots of projects. Zenith Minerals has had lots of projects in the past, but really you're laser focused back into these gold and base metals ones. So let's talk a little bit about those. And you mentioned a moment ago 4 key projects, and what you said that you've had quite a deal of success with those. So
yeah, yes.
I got to tell you, our listeners, our viewers, they love it when they hear success. So let's unwrap that a little bit, and you tell us, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I'll just unpack that a little bit. So I think if I could just preempt it by saying, in order to have success, you really need sort of 3 things. The first thing is you need assets, and the assets have to have both scale and relevance. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need capital to generate value from those assets. Now, either the capital is cash you have, or the ability to access that capital. And the third thing, which is the key thing, if you like, in that success triangle, is people. you need people. Now, if you think about that in a bit more detail, both assets and capital are inanimate items. In their own right, they can't do anything. The catalyst event is the people, right? So the people can drive the value, drive the relevance, raise the capital, generate shareholder value. So I think, that's the context in which we're looking at the asset portfolio we have. Now, the assets we've got have scale. They're quite interesting. I'll just really talk about 3 of them today, but there are 2 others that will in time advance. So we've been drilling a gold project in Queensland called Red Mountain, and we've released some really exciting results in that. The initial anomaly on that breccia pipe was 1,200 metres long, and we've continued to drill there, and we've got a diamond rig kicking off there shortly. So that's one gold project. In Western Australia, we're drilling
sorry, Peter, I'm just going to interrupt you. First of all, how did you come across the Red Mountain asset, and what is it that Zenith Minerals thinks it's got legs, it's got scale? Let's just unpack that a little bit if you could.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kerry. So again, this gets down to the team's ability to seem to pick these projects that for whatever reason someone else hasn't. So they've picked up the project in its own right. It's in a known prospective gold region, and it's probably most analogous to a project called Mount Wright, which is located nearby. And one of the features of these sort of projects is sort of cigar-shaped ore bodies. So they tend to have not a lot of surface expression. In our case, we think it's probably got about 300 lateral metres, but can have, a long depth expression. So we've only drilled this thing to 100 vertical metres to date, but our current program is to start pushing down under that. So we're looking for these sort of higher grade, discrete ore bodies, not unlike Mount Wright. So it's a proven area, Mount Wright, Mount Rawdon, in that part of Queensland. So we really identified the area because of the geological prospectivity, and it hasn't been well trawled over. So obviously we're getting very active right now.
So, but nobody else had. You didn't pick it up from someone else. Has it had much drilling on it in the past?
No, very little. It's a bit of a history of errors, if you would like. But there's a little bit of soil sampling done, but no formalised drilling. So it's almost like a virgin project. And the results to date have been really exciting.
Okay, and drilling, you've done some drilling, you've got more to come, is that right? Yeah,
so we'll drill there continuously for the remainder of this calendar year, and then subject to results, it may in fact go on from there. Okay, so watch this space with Red Mountain, lots of drilling results coming out. We might have to get you back on when those no, lots of results. And then the other sort of more advanced gold projects in Western Australia, it's called Split Rocks. Split Rocks is a little different. We've defined a zone that's 18 kilometres long, anomalous zone. Within that, there are 18 discrete sort of, if you like, targets or projects. And we're focusing on, because you can't evaluate them all at once, we're focusing on 3 or 4 of them right now. So same thing, we've already put a whole bunch of air core holes in. Really interesting results coming. So I'd very much say watch this space with that one. It's a very interesting project. So is that rather like Red Mountain, Split Rocks? Well, you've got some drilling going on and that will be continuous to the end of the year? Yeah, but the difference is that with Red Mountain, we're drilling with RC and diamond. With Split Rocks, we're still air core drilling, but I would imagine in time we'll advance to RC and, subject to success, diamond. Okay, so one's a little bit more advanced. Correct. And then the other project I wouldn't mind touching on is Devlin Creek. So also in Queensland, we have a polymetallic VMS system defined at Devlin Creek. It already has a small discrete resource on it. And we hope to drill another prospect in the 50-kilometre long prospective zone called Snook, SNOOK. So Snook will be pretty interesting. Why copper or why base metals? I think it's pretty simple. We all understand the gold argument and why you would be exposed to that in this world of very uncertain times. But I think one of the other outcomes of the whole COVID event is that we're going to see a massive injection of capital, and we're already seeing this with respect to infrastructure development around the first and developing world in response. And whenever that happens globally, you see a big demand for things like iron ore, copper, lead, zinc, etc., etc. Now, it doesn't matter whether they're green projects or more traditional projects; those sorts of things get consumed. Copper is a fascinating commodity. It's about a 26 million tonne per annum market. And
actually, Peter, I know you know quite a lot about copper, so can we just delve into that a little bit? Because Devlin Creek, really, it's a copper story.
Yep.
Let's just talk about, if you could, because I do know you understand this area. Copper seems to be, everyone's talking about gold. Copper's coming up, isn't it? And is there a supply shortage coming, or what are your views on copper, and why should investors be looking at copper stories?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So you're right. I think copper, most people would understand it's sort of the principal metal used both in things like pipe and that sort of thing, but also electrical. If we analyse copper as a commodity, it's sort of the biggest base metal market. It's around 26 million tonnes per annum of production from various sources, primary and recycling. And it's been growing as a market since the 1950s. It's between 1.5% and 2.5% per annum consistently since that period. So if you think about that, that implies that every year you need approximately 400 to 500,000 tonnes of new production to satisfy the demand curve. There's only 10 to 15 mines historically have ever produced that. So where are we going to, I think one of the knock-on effects of this is going to be, we're going to see a spike in the price because there's just not enough production coming on. And the other issue we have, and this is not only unique to copper, but the time it takes to find and permit a mine is somewhere between 10 or 20 years. So it's a pretty exciting space for copper. And I think the green revolution is also very, very positive for copper.
And some of the, I guess some of those copper mines that have been in production for some time may be coming to the end of their mine life right now.
Yeah, well, as we know, all mines are finite, and yeah, sure, they can extend a bit with price increases and new discoveries, but they can't go forever. So you're right. I mean, we will have it'll be a supply side problem going into the next 2 to 5 years.
2 to 5 years. And I guess that plays well into your project, because if it's 2 to 5, these things don't happen. And I think it's really important for our listeners, viewers to understand this. Mines don't just suddenly happen. It's not like going to the supermarket and saying, I'll buy a pint of milk. No. These things take time and planning and people. And I was really pleased when you talked about people, Peter, because I'm always saying to our listeners, you can have the best assets in the world, but without good management, it can go horribly wrong.
Yeah,
so,
you're absolutely spot on. And it's really interesting in the announcement we made today about me taking on the exec chair role, we made mention of the fact that we've been accumulating the current portfolio for over 3 years.
Right.
The people have done that. That takes skill, it takes graft, it takes time, and a lot of intelligence. So, they've put together a great portfolio in our case, in readiness for what I think is going to be a very positive time in the precious and base metal space.
You said the team's been putting it together for 3 years. That team is led by Mick Clifford, who is the managing director. If you could just share with our listeners a little bit of his background and why he is the guy to kind of lead these projects forward.
He is the guy, that's right. So Mick's a very experienced geologist, has worked at the big end of town, been instrumental in some major discoveries in his work life, and he continues to do that. And whilst the team is modest in our case, it's that experience base, that contact network that has allowed us to put that portfolio together.
Now, you did have some other projects that Zenith have got some ownership of. Are they just sitting quietly in the background, and is the focus on the projects you've just spoken about, Red Mountain, Split Rocks, and what was the third one?
Devlin Creek.
Thank you.
No, so we've got some others. So there are two other gold projects. There's Flanagan's and a project called Jagadri. They're just a little bit behind on the timeline, but they will get evaluated most likely this quarter. So they're if you like, our core 5 projects. And then we also have some independently managed joint ventures. We have a involvement in a project called Erahidi with Rumble. We have a 25% interest in a zinc-dominated project. And then a gold project, Kavaltepe in Turkey, which is managed by Teck. That will be an interesting project to watch because they're drilling 6 holes currently, which is previously announced, to try and join the dots between 2 high-grade anomalous areas. So, yeah, they're well managed. We're happy to be a participant in those, but they're not our day-to-day projects, but we feel like we've got a great option on them.
So that
would be exposed.
Yeah, and I guess that potentially is adding shareholder value, because at the end of the day, our listeners are shareholders, not all shareholders of Zenith, but we wanted to introduce this company because I think you've flown a little bit under the radar while you've been doing this, I guess, foundation building.
No, that's right. And I think the timing is now right to start talking about these assets because you've summed it up beautifully. I mean, I think we've been building the foundations, the work's been going on in the background, but, very good quality work. The success has started to happen, and, if listeners get the opportunity, they should have a look at the website. They'll see some of the more recent announcements on the projects we've touched upon. And it's very much watch this space because we're actively exploring them, and they're quite, if they come to fruition, they're quite big scale projects if we can get them to work.
And you mentioned earlier, you've done a capital raising, you're well funded. So well funded for the next 12 months to get these projects into a more advanced state.
That's right. I mean, the focus really now is to, use that capital to advance the knowledge and the value of each one of these projects we've touched upon.
So, Peter, just in summary before I let you go, because I know you've got lots on today, why now for investors? What is it about the positioning now? You've come on as exec chairman, Mick's out there getting stuff done as well. So why now? Why do you feel that investors, timing wise, need to take a good look at Zenith Minerals?
Yeah, well, Mick's doing the hard work. I did the easy job. But look, assets which are both relevant and scalable. We've got the capital to advance the value of those assets, and I think we've got the team in place, and you sort of touched upon it. The timing's right. I think, it's an exciting space in precious and base metals, and we've got, I think, the right recipe to really advance the value of the company. So I'd encourage people to have a look at it and put it on their watch list.
Well, small caps are here to make sure that our investors know what's happening out there in investor land. Zenith Minerals and the code is ZNC. Peter Bird is the newly appointed executive chairman. Lots going on, lots of news results coming up. And Peter, we'll make sure we check in with you as those results come through so we can have a little bit of an interpretation and unlock some shareholder value. But thanks for chatting with us today.
Really appreciate it, Kerry, and thanks everyone for listening.